the Grouchy Nerd.
Alright, you antisocial weirdos, let's learn a game that plays at the ideal player count. 1. Maquis, designed by Jake Staines, who did double duty as artist. Settle down, Jake. And published by Side Room Games, is a solitaire worker placement game played over a series of 15 rounds and takes about a half an hour to play. Your goal in Maquis is to guide a group of resistance fighters as they attempt to dismantle the Nazi occupation of France during World War II by completing 2 missions before you're discovered by La Milice, a paramilitary group of Nazi-sympathizing locals, or the morale of your town gets so low that they stop fighting back and they just become Nazis? Missions are completed by performing actions, and actions are taken by visiting locations around town, and we're saying morale is the thing keeping us from becoming Nazis? Like, I'm just going to get sad enough one day that I'm like, I guess I'll just genocide. Morale. That is some serious ennui. Oh, excuse me, economic anxiety. Place the game board and the morale soldier boards in your play area. The game board shows the locations to which you'll be sending your workers and the paths they can use to return home, indicated by white road lines. The morale track represents how well the locals are resisting the Nazi occupation. The black number is the town's morale, and the red number is the minimum number of patrols that will be placed each day. The number of patrols that will be placed is equal to the number of resistance workers you place, or this red number, whichever is higher. At certain points in the game, your soldier track may advance. We'll see how that happens a little later. But the number indicated in the spaces on the soldier track are the number of placed patrol pawns that must be soldiers rather than milice. Also, the soldiers are placed last, so if you need to place 4 patrols and your soldier track is on 1, you'll place 3 blue milice pawns and then place 1 red soldier pawn. Shuffle the 10 cards that make up the patrol deck and place them face down near the game board. The patrol cards each have 3 locations on them, and I'll explain them in greater detail in a bit. The blue tracking cube, which marks how many days have passed, goes on the game board, and the white and red ones go on the morale soldier board in the spaces indicated. Stack the resource tokens to one side to form the supply. Remember that these resources are finite during the game. You can only ever have as many as there physically are, which is 4. Place the spare room action tiles near the game board. These can be looked at any time, but start out of play. Maquis, a French word for a type of underbrush, were so called because that is where they often hid as they conducted their guerrilla warfare, among bushes and underbrush. You get a safe house. You're not like a regular freedom fighter, you're a cool freedom fighter. Place 3 of your resistance worker pawns there as your available pool of workers. The other 2 go near the cafe to be recruited later. For your first game, the book recommends the Officer's Mansion and Milice Parade Day missions. In later games, draw 2 missions at random. You can pick them entirely randomly, or you can pick them randomly for their difficulty, with 1-star missions being easier than 2-star missions. If a part of you just really wants to see the Nazis win, you should A, examine that, but also B, you can choose one of the 3-star very difficult missions and then 1 random 1 or 2-star mission to go with that, but also C, really examine that. Missions are completed through actions, which will be explained more in a bit. Often the mission actions will be taken by a worker visiting the mission card itself, as indicated by an action rectangle. If there are resource icons in the rectangle, you must pay the indicated resources to complete the action. If the action rectangle has a dashed border, the action is taken at a different location, as indicated in the text of the mission. Some missions have several action boxes, like this 1-star mission, Sabotage. These actions must be completed in order. In this case, it must be visited twice, and on a 3rd visit, you deliver explosives. Use the yellow cubes to track completed objectives and mission actions. The rest of the missions go back in the box. The blue milice and red soldier patrol pawns go near the game board, as well as the yellow action cubes. Each turn plays thusly. Placement phase. Check the red number in the space marked by your cube on the morale track to determine how many patrol pawns will be placed this day. You'll place either this number of patrol pawns or the same number of workers you have to place, whichever number is higher. Place one of your workers in an available space on the board. There may only be 1 pawn of any type on any space. I guess places in France are very small. Or oui. No? Discard the top card of the patrol deck and place a patrol pawn on the location indicated in the first space if able. If there is already a pawn of any type in the indicated location, continue to the second option, and again to the third if necessary. If all 3 locations are occupied, begin again from the top. This time, however, the patrol is going to stop at the first location occupied by a resistance worker and arrest it. An arrested worker is permanently removed from the game. It may not be re-recruited. If all 3 locations are occupied by patrol pawns, then that patrol pawn takes the day off and hopefully does some good hard thinking about the kind of people it's been hanging out with lately. Place your next worker, then the next patrol. This continues back and forth until the final patrol pawn has been placed. Now, there may come a time where you have more patrol pawns than you have available workers to place, and that's okay. Well, no, it sucks. I mean, it sucks, but I just mean that's normal to have happen. Just continue to place patrol pawns until you run out. When the patrol deck runs out, shuffle it and reset it. Remember to place soldier pawns last, if applicable. Action phase. One at a time and in any order, activate each of your workers by performing the action indicated on the location, or a mission action, though you only get the action's reward if the worker can trace a route back to the safe house. More on that in a moment. If there's just a resource icon, the action is gaining that resource, starting you out easy. If the icon has an arrow, the action is a trade. Pay the resource type on the left to the supply to receive the reward on the right, usually another resource or a mission objective. A slash indicates a choice either between two actions or between two rewards. In either case, you only get to choose one of them. Radioing for an airdrop allows you to choose either 1 weapon, 1 money, or 3 food to be placed in an empty field. The pick up airdrop option allows your worker to retrieve any resources that were dropped on a previous day. Airdrops may not be retrieved on the same turn in which they are delivered, and you may not place a worker on an empty field. The add spare room action allows you to pay 2 money to add any one of the set-aside spare room tiles, overlaying the indented space that worker is on. This becomes a new location in your town. While the tutorial missions don't require one of these rooms, the later missions will require resources that are only available on these spare rooms. For instance, our old buddy Sabotage requires explosives, and the only way to get explosives is by trading for one with a medical supply at the chemistry room. The fixer allows you to pay its cost and then perform an action on any spare room not currently on the board. Note that you still must pay the cost of the action on the spare room, so you're going to pay both the fixer and the spare room that is set aside. Activate missions by either visiting the mission location or a location indicated thereon. Remember that mission objectives with numbers have to be done in order, and you can mark those with yellow cubes. After each worker's activation, but before you receive their reward, you must be able to trace a route using the white road lines through the city back to your safe house without passing through a location occupied by a milice or a soldier. Note that one of the spare rooms is a second safe house. If this room has been deployed to your town, your workers may return to either safe house. That's a real good one to prioritize. If no clear route is present, your worker is arrested. The pawn is removed from the game and may not be re-recruited, and unless they were at a location with an orange shield symbol like this one, or completing an objective on a mission with the shield icon, you also lose the reward they were carrying. If your worker was at a location with an orange shield, they still get arrested. You just still get their reward. However, once per day, you have the option to shoot a milice patrol. Discard a weapon resource to remove 1 milice patrol from the board. The milice pawn must already be on the board, so it may not prevent a milice from being placed on one of your workers' locations and arresting it during the placement phase. Each time you do this, however, you must increase the soldier track, meaning that the milice in your city will be replaced with German military soldiers, and these guys cannot be shot because you're like students and farmers, and they're full-on German soldiers. What were you even thinking? You know what? No, you're a hero for trying. A fake ID can also get you past a single patrol pawn. This one works on both milice and soldiers. You must place the fake ID with the worker when you place it in the first phase. If the worker encounters a patrol on its way back to the safe house, it won't get arrested, but it will lose the fake ID. If it does not encounter a patrol, the fake ID is not spent and it can be used another day. If the worker must pass more than one patrol, the fake ID isn't enough, and the worker is not only arrested and removed from the game, but you also lose the fake ID, and those things are expensive. Once your final worker is either back at the safe house or arrested, move on to the upkeep phase. Remove all patrols from the board and move the day marker down 1 space on the day track. If the marker moves onto an orange space, you must also decrease the morale by moving that track's marker. So an orange thing makes the morale go down and everything slips a little bit closer to Nazism. Begin again at the placement phase of the new day. If you finish both of your missions in that time, you win. The Nazis are thwarted, and now Indiana Jones never happens. I hope you're proud of yourself. What? What's bigger than Indiana Jones not... Oh! Right! That's much bigger. Well, I hope you are proud of yourself. Otherwise, you lose if at any point your last worker is arrested, the morale track goes to the fail space, or the 15th day ends. If you complete both of your missions and one of your missions was a 3-star mission, you're considered to have a major win, and they'll probably put up statues of you and stuff. If you only complete one mission and you lose because time runs out, then you're considered to have scored a draw. And you know what they say about people who score draws? Not much. Now get out of my underbrush. The Grouchy Nerd. Remember, friends don't let friends adopt violent extremist ideologies, and always, always oppose your local Nazi.